that doesn't matter because there's some of the things I think that we'll talk about will be useful for that. And the aim of this really is to sort of chip in a few things and thoughts that help shape your decisions over the coming weeks. I'm sure you will change things as your experience goes. Again, it's unprecedented of how things are going to work out. So this is about making sure, and I think the thing that we're thinking about is building the confidence of your consumers, your shoppers, the people that visit your business, and including your employees as well. The more confidence they've got, the more the great experience and service they'll give. What's really at the heart of what we in Insight 6 do is customer at the heart. So we want to think about, the focus on customers and how they feel due to the COVID experience. We'll try and articulate some of that. It's about thinking about how you behave and react and in change environments. We will do a little bit about how buying behaviours are changing very slightly, and so we'll mention that. But there's three things that I want to get us into. I'll mention about safety. You're probably well into that at the moment, so I won't major in on that. But I will sort of a few things that we've picked up along the way that might get you thinking about the things that you've done or maybe you haven't done. I do want to talk about how staff are affected, and I also want to just mention about customer service and experience, which is going to be a major part of what we discuss. So, and why now? Well, it's if people are sort of feeling a bit odd about going out and travelling, and I've got some statistics for you in just a moment, into a town or city centre or going to a place of business, then this is exactly the time to think about, well, what is our customer service, customer experience like right now? Because how does it fit in with the way that people are thinking? So this is a prime opportunity to do that. So where are we now? Tracy, I'm going to ask you in just a moment, but the lockdown is slowly opening up. June the 15th was a big day for town centres. So if you haven't already done so, you might be in a position to open your business more widely. Clearly, there are some sectors that can't do that. There's still a lot of fear out there, though. Tracy, what are you noticing?
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting, actually, sort of from businesses have spent the last several weeks getting ready. Some have used the opportunity to redecorate or actually move the shop around to make sure that it's better for customers. So yeah, the businesses are very conscious of the social distancing requirements, and also as a bid we've been helping businesses. So we've got sort of print at home posters that businesses can use. The council have also produced poster packs as well, so they are available for businesses, and also bulk order of sanitizer, because an awful lot of businesses have done absolutely the right thing and provided sanitizer for customers as soon as they come in. And I think a number have also been working with their staff as well, in terms of making sure that the staff know what to do and how the shop's been laid out differently. And also a number of things like protective screens, which are good. And I think, having visited the businesses on Monday, a few business owners saying things like, it feels like it's almost like you're sort of opening the business again from scratch. So that sort of nervousness, trepidation, are they going to be busy? How will that pan out? So yeah, and a mix of emotions. And I think, as you say, that aligning how they are to how customers are feeling, because there's a mix of people who are desperate to get out and then others who are more nervous.
Yeah, and there are some statistics around that. Ipsos Mori did a poll, and some of the statistics are here on this slide. And meeting friends and family outside your household, 2/3 of people seem to be comfortable. Shopping in supermarkets, shopping in shops, going to work, normal pace of work, school, going to bars and restaurants, using public transport are big issues, I think. It's a half and half, and we've done surveys for other businesses where we've realised that it's a half or even more of people really don't want to venture out, even if there's a high emphasis on safety in places. So I think we've got to bear in mind that there's even if the guideline comes down from 2 meters to 1 meter, there's still going to be people out there that are not really wanting to go out. I mean, going to a crowded bar or restaurant or using public transport is a real fear of people. So so there is that issue. Come on to that in a minute. So it's there, it's laid bare in some of those statistics there. And just to add to that, I think, you know, I think we all now realise that there isn't an old normal coming back. It's going to be very different. So there is going to be a new normal, and what will that world look like? So we've already seen that there's more online activity at the moment. I think for the last few years there was something about 18 to 20% of all purchases were made online. The last statistic I saw was a few weeks ago, and that was 30%. So it jumped by 50% very, very quickly. That may well go higher, and especially if people are still uncertain of going out. Our problem here is that we've got to make sure that, despite all of the restrictions and safety measures that are in place, people have got to enjoy their shopping and enjoy their visits to high streets. Otherwise, more of those purchases will go online. And as we've already seen, less travel. Travel is going to become more difficult. I live around the Croydon area. We've got a tram network, and a full tram can hold 240 people. At the moment, they can only hold 20 because of distancing. So travel is going to be harder for people because they can get less people on some of the vehicles. And people are scared of it, as you saw from the previous slide. So it's going to be difficult. Maybe we haven't really seen the effects of the economics of this yet. There may well be later on this year a very much less prosperous population. So price might come into some of the discussions that you have with customers and clients. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And more people may, as we just mentioned, driven to using online service. We don't want that to happen, so we've got to make sure that businesses provide great value and a great experience. And just some of the financial behaviours there. It's sort of, I've already done this or considering this. People are spending money less overall, and they're considering it as well. Saving more money, accessing money from savings is a key issue. So thrift is beginning to take hold, and people are starting to think about how are you going to make our money go further. And just to sort of summarise that, really, you know, predominantly comfortable about meeting with family and friends, more comfortable than not about shopping in supermarket and other similar shops. Returning to their place of work, so it's half and half as we saw. Not comfortable about visiting bars and restaurants, but then they're not able to open just yet. Not comfortable about large-scale gatherings and using public transport, which we've seen from the statistics. Although, albeit it seems okay that people can, 200 people can sit in an aeroplane, an EasyJet aeroplane, a foot away from each other, and breathe in the same air for 3 hours. All seems weird, but those are the rules at the moment. And just, you know, if you're watching this, I'd just like to think about your reputation as well, not just over the COVID period, but the lockdown period, but afterwards as well. So, you know, we've all seen some of the press around Sports Direct who tried to get themselves passed off as an essential business. Weatherspoons and the boss then sort of didn't treat his staff very well. Alan Partridge there, Steve Coogan, who decided he could furlough his gardener, and Liverpool Football Club will try to furlough people, yet having a lot of money behind them, and I think they retracted that. But Grand Sapphire Hotel that are here in Croydon, Suleiman Raza is the boss of that, and they've been doing 1 million meals they kept their kitchens open, and they provided millions, hundreds of thousands of meals, and they're aiming for 1 million, and it's fantastic. So they built a reputation around that. We need to think about what our business's reputation will be as we emerge from this, and we certainly don't want to be seen in the top 4 of those. So, as I said at the start, 3 voices shouting loudly: voice of safety, voice of staff, voice of the client. all need to be in place if you're going to have a coherent approach to building the business, your business, as we go further into the rest of this year. And we'll focus just a few minutes on each of those. I mean, the safety piece, again, I'll just run through a few quick things. Tracy, you mentioned a few of those in just some of your comments a minute ago. What are some of the safety measures that you've picked up? Any innovative ones that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, businesses have been really good with sort of, you know, the floor stickers that they've got. I was in one of the businesses the other day, and they put a sort of one-way system round, which is, it's just helpful. It's those visual clues for people to remind them about social distancing, but also to kind of help them navigate around the shops. And actually, I did see a really good innovative one. Actually, its business is quite small. Small premises, so it's not easy to get a number of people in, and they'd actually just put a barrier across their door. They want and you know, with independent retail, it is, you want to have your door open to show that you're open and you're welcoming people, but also it's that you don't want people to kind of crowd into the shop. So actually putting a barrier across that open door, I thought, was a very innovative way of just making people think before they enter.
Excellent, that's good. So, I guess most businesses are starting to get to grips with the safety aspects. Safety is absolutely critical. It's a hygiene factor. That's almost a pun, isn't it? But it has to be in place. And the phrase is of social distancing is the phrase that we keep seeing time and time again in the surveys and the comments that we get. Social distancing is absolutely critical. So whether it's 2 meters, whether it becomes 1 meter, whatever it is, it's got to be absolutely in place. And staff in businesses have to be seen to be making sure that they enforce that. Just I won't spend much time on these, but just very quickly, if you're not aware, there's lots of recommendations for all different types of sectors, particularly retail, on the gov.uk website, and they give lots of information about what safety measures are in place. Just a few key thoughts. So your main area: spacing, queuing, screens, entry processes, as Tracy was mentioning just then. Cleanliness is absolutely critical. Again, that Tracy mentioned about sanitizers, but you might want to think about increased regularity and depth. It's a good idea to have people see you clean. So someone walking around with a sanitizer and cloths to continually clean the areas that people will generally touch, like doors and rails and whatever. So if they're seen to be being clean all the time, that's brilliant. Some of your visitors, whether you're a shop or an office, you know, maybe you're going to regulate visitors, appointment only, limited number at any one time, and think about your payments as well. Maybe, can they be done remotely, or can they be done on a tap only? Tracy mentioned about the signage. I'm sure you've all got information about what in signage you do need to have, but make sure that it's absolutely critical that people understand what that signage is telling them. What about if you've got common areas like meeting rooms, kitchens, toilets, lifts, if there are any, hot desks, if there are any, you know, they need to be cleaned on a regular basis as well. Your website needs to tell people you're safe. Tell them, shout from the rooftops, we're open and we're safe. So your online presence needs to say whether it's your Facebook page. I'm sure you're all acquainted with what PPE might be required, but also as part of the government recommendations, they recommend a risk assessment. I think that's important to do. It's a health and safety thing now, and part of that is consultation with staff. So you might want to be making sure that your staff understand everything that needs to happen, and also, you know, think about what processes must have contact. So we do a bit of work with lawyers. They've got document signings, will signings. There's one firm that's got a drive-through will signing process. So think about what needs to happen, and think about what people will touch. So it's going to be absolutely important. What products are they touching? So if someone touches a product, does that product need to be kept somewhere for 72 hours until it can be touched again? So think about how that needs to, or any products that are brought back to you and returned, they might need to have to be quarantined effectively. Just a few words about staffing, really. It's absolutely crucial that your staff are, one, confident, and two, au fait with everything that needs to happen. I know it repeats what we've just said, but it really is so important. Think about how many staff, one, you need, and two, that are going to come back in. If you're not already aware, we're picking up from lots of firms that they think they know what staff think about all of this, but they're not sure about what staff think about this. So we did a survey of a couple of firms where we picked up that there were a number of staff that were at risk, a number of staff that were caring for at risk, and a number of staff that would come in via public transport on a regular basis. And that was nearly 40% of the staff of this particular firm. So that has an impact on how many might be available at any one time. So if you don't know that, you might need to find out. The next bullet sort of says, well, exactly that, which is, what are your staff saying? Who's concerned? Who's okay? Do you know? If you haven't, if you don't know for certain, find out. And as I said, we've seen a bit earlier, the Ipsos Mori poll, you know, it's 50%, it's up to 2/3 of people, depending on where you look, but are not overly confident to venture out. As I said, 40% at risk, caring for someone at risk, plus the public transport piece. In one firm, only 28% of the firm were really fully confident, even if all the safety measures are implemented. This was a big office firm. So, you know, we need to be aware that that's the case, and we can do something about it and then build that confidence level. And it's about, what are their concerns? What would they need to make sure that they feel better and more confident about coming into work in their normal place of work? You need to find out and then act upon that, and then implement some of those measures that they think are important. So it's really important. And as I said, the government are interested in finding out, that making the point that they need to be asked, heard, and updated as to what actions are being taken. And just to sort of move on from that, you know, it might be worth finding out who travels in by public transport or car share, for instance, which is also causes a problem. I don't know if any of you have got people based at home now or furloughed. We've seen in some firms that the at-home staff are communicated to better than and more regularly than furloughed staff. So we'd ideally suggest that you try and, if those furloughed staff are going to be coming back, need to make sure that the communication updates are for those as well. And just a few final thoughts. You know, think about, you know, we talked about how many people do you need to have a rota, staff in, staff out, split teams, then a cleaning piece beforehand. A gradual return, maybe ongoing checking of confidence levels. We want to get it up from that 28% that we've just seen just a moment ago. Fully brief everyone on all the measures and walk them through it, the staff journey, if you like, so that they can see what's happening, what will happen for them, and what will happen for clients or customers as well. So that's the sort of safety piece, which I think you're sort of pretty well on top of, or we should be, and the staff piece, which is going to be vital. And it'd be interesting if you did ask some of your staff how confident they were. You might find, as with quite a few other firms, confidence isn't quite as high as maybe a lot of people think. But let's get on to the client. Let's get on to the client or the customer. And the point there is that, as the elephant never forgets, really, in that, and that's the piece here, is that, you know, you're known for what you were before, and you'll be known pretty quickly for what happens soon after this process. So this week, as we're on the Thursday of, so what date is that, Tracy? 17th we are now. So so we've been a few days open, and but you'll be remembered for whether you've got this organised or you haven't got this organised, and you thought this through. So it's absolutely critical that these few days work well for you. And our big aim is about providing that memorable experience, so that and it's important so that, one, they make a purchase, two, they become a long-term customer, and three, we don't send them because of a poor experience back to online. That's what we're trying to guard against. That 30% we don't of people doing stuff online, we don't want that getting any bigger. That means they get a great experience on the high street, and that's what you've got to be able to provide. So in terms of some of the things that, you know, we think about this, we think about the customer journey as a whole piece, from before they visit you to a visit, or the process, depending upon the way that people visit you. Is it they come in and buy something and they go, or they come in and they discuss something and they go away and think about it and they come back and order, and then there's a delivery. It could be that they're looking at stuff online and they look at your website and your presence before coming to see you or picking up the phone. With most businesses, there's a whole journey that people go through. If it's not just the visit, so we've got to think about all of those particular parts of the customer journey so that you can get them right. And let's talk about how it's changing. So, well, is it different? I mean, a good question to ask some of your team members would be, you know, how is your customer journey changing? It might be that more people are phoning you. It might be that more people are emailing you, and that has its problems in some respects, because when people came in to see you, you could get across a bit of personality about your business and yourself. More difficult to do that over the phone, and definitely more difficult to do that on web. So so you may have fewer face-to-face encounters, more on the web and on the phone. Maybe you have to get better at handling those. We're also picking up that customer expectations of value and service are still there, and that will be a continuing issue. So so one of the things, you're probably not the cheapest at what you do. No, there's only one business that can be the cheapest in one particular thing at any one time. So how are you going to get across a sense of value and service? So think about that, and especially if people have become more used to online services now, and we know that online you can look up the price of a drill, and it will come up with who sells it the cheapest. There'll be a line of those. You can't afford that to happen. You need to be highlighting the value and service that you're giving. So you need to think about how we get that across in some of the interactions that you do have. I mentioned a bit earlier that price might be an objection that crops up more. We know that in 2008, before 2008, there was people that had price as the main key thing that worried them about a particular transaction was around about 14%, but about 60-odd% thought about the price as an equation with value, the price being, the value being, what do you get for the price that you pay? We also know that soon after 2008, it went up to around about 20%. And it was back down to 13-14% over the last few years, so before COVID. So price may be an objection that crops up more. So you may need to be in a position to highlight the value either on the phone or on web. That means highlighting the things that you do that add value to the price that you're given. And let's think about that just for a moment. You know, if what do you do that adds more value? Well, you can probably demo. You can help people try stuff. You may not be able to try on in a changing room in a fashion shop, but they can go back and bring it back. You can advise and give advice. You can color match things, which you can't really do online. So there are lots of things that you can do. There's an after-sales service maybe, and there are lots of things that you can do that online can't. So they're possibly some of the things you want to be making sure that businesses that you get across to people. If price comes up as an objection, or you see someone taking a sly photograph of an item thinking I'll go back and look that up on the web, that must happen in bookshops all the time. More or less customers, well, it's interesting. There might be a spike this week and next week maybe, but maybe less in the longer term. So a point is going to be, how are you going to get your share? So what presence have you got out there online to make sure that people know you're open, up and running, safe, and providing great value? So think about how you're going to get that across on some of your tweets, Facebook posts as well. And just looking at that, going back to that client journey, customer journey as well. I mean, we've got the web, you've got online, you've got telephone. You know, think about the things that you do. So we've already talked just a minute ago about, you know, we might need to get better at handling web inquiries and be prompt and quick about doing it. Be brilliant on the telephone, which maybe we haven't needed to do in the past. So think about the starting point. You know, what's out there in terms of your reviews online? Are people saying, yeah, it was a good experience, they were safe, I enjoyed the visit? That's what we want, because people do look. 80% of people look at online reviews before they do things. So it's important you think about your online presence. Just a few things about. We got some pictures there. Tracy highlighted about some of the things that are happening to make sure there's good public signage out there. And it's absolutely crucial that, you know, you've got your signage as well. And it's really important that people can see. There's no doubt about what needs to happen. You stand there, you come this way, you keep that distance. It's obvious, and I'm sure you've got all that in place. But on that point, there's loads of signage and screens maybe. Is it welcoming? How are you going to get across a welcoming atmosphere? It's really important. So, you know, your team members might need to continue to be clear, empathetic. All the things we always talked about customer service in the past were around smile and good eye contact and good body language. They're going to be even more important going forward. Trying to help people make the best of what might be a slightly restricted process and help them enjoy it. So it's going to have to be, you're going to have to make sure that your team members do that as often as possible. And so there's consistency around that. Just a few top tips really that might sort of get you thinking. Something you might want to think about. I don't like the jargon, unique selling points, but why did people come to see you and use your business before COVID? Is what we need to make sure is still happening after COVID. So you've got to think about, why would someone want to come into the business? It might be a good question to ask some of your team members, and they're the things that we need to get across. So you could be a jeweler's and you deal in high class jewelry, and people came in because you had a massive knowledge of all sorts of different types of jewelry. You could demonstrate things to those people that came in, and they could see the quality in what your merchandise. You still need to be able to provide that. So how are you going to do that at 2 meters distance? You might need to think about things like little mobile phone videos of, I can't let you get any closer, but I'm going to take a mobile phone video of this and I'll send it to you, so that people can see at close quarters a mini demonstration of a particular product. May or may not work, but it's an idea that one business has come up with. So get thinking about why people will want to come in. Just a few thoughts. The things that we do all the time anyway, displays, you know, they've got to be 2 meters distance and clean, but must be eye-catching. So it's things that people look at and think, I like the look of that. Think about items. We've seen retailer after retailer that tries to cram as much stock into a smaller space as possible. So you might need to be brutal about what sells, what sometimes sells, what rarely sells, and be clear about what's going to be out on display, and not having all stock out. So you know, have one size of shirt out and have the rest out back, so it might give you more space so that people can see you've got options. And that does give you an opportunity to ask if people are looking at a particular thing, and then, by the way, we've got other sizes if you're interested in what you'd be looking at, and gets into the conversation. What might people want now? you know, what are people thinking about? Well, that's a good question to ask some of your customers. What are the key services they're looking for? I think there's some of the things that you might want to get into the conversation with. And just as a final point, really thinking about this online presence. So online purchase is one thing, but click and collect is another. You know, these people can see what you do and they want to reserve something. Good idea. Use of mini videos we talked about just a minute ago, but let people know, still open, you're still good at what you do, you're safe, you're welcoming, there's good value and good quality in what you're doing. And is that coming across in your online presence? Just a word, I mean, I mentioned about words and BL being body language and tone. I'm sure you know that you probably all sent a text to someone and they didn't quite get the irony or humor or sarcasm that you wanted, and they took it a slightly different way. So think about it. You know, over the telephone we get a bit of tone and a little bit of body language. You can that comes across. You can hear it in someone's voice. On an email, you don't only get words, so that's why your text fails. So if you've got people coming to visit you, make sure that body language is fantastic. If you're getting email inquiries, try and get them on the phone. Give them a call if they give you a phone number. So words do one thing, but body language and tone give you so much richer a conversation, and you can get across about your value and your enthusiasm and your knowledge and your experience in those ways. You're going to have difficult customers. I think you're going to have people that in various different camps, the people that can't be bothered, the people that are overcautious, the people that just don't know the rules and therefore sort of don't stick with them. Know your policy. Team members need to stay calm, they need to be polite, they need to explain, they need to remind people of the way that things are going to work and thank them for doing so. I know it's obvious, but it has to happen, and I'm sure the majority of your customers or clients will be pleased if your team are doing that and making sure that everybody adheres to the safety measures that are in place. And be seen to be enforcing them is absolutely critical. But if you can do it in a nice way, brilliant. And then at the end, really, just a few things, really. If you've got deliveries that are made, they extend the experience that people have with you. So again, it has to be done in a safe way, but cheerful, friendly, helpful. If there's emails that you send that after things have happened, have been bought or services provided, or a telephone call to follow up on those, make sure that there's a real good solid element of empathy and knowledge of the fact that if there's a return, something needs to be returned, then there's a new process of doing that. And just a few final tips, really. Payment, we've talked about contactless, send receipts by email. That means you get an email address. I'll come to that in literally just a moment. You might have different opening hours to help people traveling in, staff traveling in at slightly less crowded times. Be ready to combat price issues, as we've just talked about. Highlight the value of buying from you. As we've mentioned, what does the internet not do? Service, demo, try on, try out, advice, it can take back, color match, etc., as it says there. Think about the lipstick effect. This happened in 2008, and you'll have seen it. You'll have seen that when things got tighter, people didn't have expensive hairdos, but they went to nail bars. So instead of spending £80 or £100 on a hairdo, they spent £10, £15 on a nail bar. So that was the lipstick effect, the cheaper alternatives. So think about the way that your products have different layers of expense. We know that there's a timber merchant all across the whole of South London where they have different levels of quality of timber. They have a budget and a run-of-the-mill and a premium. So, and they generally quote on the run-of-the-mill unless it is mentioned that they'd like premium products. And then if price is an issue, they can go down one. So think about how you position your products, and have you got cheaper alternatives that you can go to if someone says, yeah, that's probably a bit more expensive than I was thinking of paying. And start an email customer list. So you know, if you're sending receipts by email, you can do that. Get them on an email, and then tell people about, you know, what you're doing, and that you're open, and you've got a new product range coming in, and new things that might be of interest to people. It's a starting point for remarketing the business. And Facebook groups, there must be local Facebook groups. Try and infiltrate some of those and let people know what you're doing. Certainly, products and services that might be of interest to those groups. Just a few final thoughts, really. Only if fall breaks a 2-meter rule. That might soon be 1 meter, but we'll have to think of something. We don't need to have something that rhymes with it. Hand sanitizing, as Tracy mentions, absolutely critical. Side to side, maybe not face to face, is a bit better. Encourage contactless payment. I think Apple Pay is unlimited, whereas it's only £25, but increased to 40 at the moment on other ones. Ask every customer for an email address, send them receipt. Gather feedback on the delivery experience. You know, if you could ask every customer, how did this work for you? What was good? What was not so good? How could we improve? You get all the feedback you needed. Non-stop delays, you know, make them aware. Obvious stuff, I know. Explain the contactless delivery process. Confirm the delivery to the door or to the room, whatever it happens to be. You know, all the things that we're now seeing from some of the big delivery firms, absolutely obvious to be done. So a sort of very quick summary, really. As I said right at the start, safety measures are a hygiene factor. They must be in place. If your staff are not confident, then it will show, and they will communicate it to some of your customers, which you can't have. So that staff journey that we mentioned, the customer journey is critical to the business starting to get moving and get people coming in on a regular basis. And only if they get the right level of service expertise and value will they be properly serviced, which means they'll come back, as it says there. And we want them to tell others, and we want them to put positive Google reviews on your Google My Business site. And if business is a bit thinner on the ground as this reopening up gets going, the firms that will thrive will be able to combat that price issue and deliver a great experience. So they're the key things that we'd like to say. And as it says there, you know, we want them to make a purchase, become long-term customers. If we don't, we're just going to drive people back onto the internet to do things. So just a few, just as little, what can you do? As mentioned, gov.uk. We've got all the stuff around spacing, PPE procedures, etc. And I know Tracy is able to be communicated with to explain some of those if need be. Staff, consult with them, poll with them, make sure that you know what their concerns are. Tell them what you've done, walk them through the process. Special considerations you might have for at-risk people or carers of at-risk people. And we've got an ongoing confidence checker that might be worth thinking about if that's something you need to do, so that we can do that on basis. And clients, think about that journey. Does it hold together? Weak links, team members prepared. Show real interest and empathy, because these circumstances have affected people in lots of different ways. You know, how are they feeling? You know, it's good to talk about it. And stress that the old normal service standards that you were well known for are key in the new normal. Accessibility, distancing, seamless and speedy call transfers, highlight what you do best, get across the things that you were well known for, and let people know. Think about your online presence. Go and have a look and see what's on there and see if you can influence that. And just a word about what we can do. We're doing these webinars. We're doing them all over the country. We can do staff surveys about confidence expectations, client service reviews. We've done mystery shops as we've done in many towns. But let me just draw your attention to the Stay Safe COVID tracker. We're doing a thing at the moment where you've got a tracker. It asks all staff how they felt at work today and why. So it gives you a number and some real-time feedback. And we could do that for 3 months, and it's £150, I think. So if something like that's of use, let me know, and you can find that out through Tracy. So I won't ask any questions, but I hope that's of interest to you. You're well down the line of doing some of these things, but I hope it gets you thinking about the broader side of making sure the business is working well as just getting it safe, and making sure our staff are in place. So it gets you thinking about 1 or 2 other considerations. So I hope that's useful, and if my contact details are there,